person in custody who has been read Miranda give consent to search their cell phone, vehicle, and or residence? What do you think, Mike? Is the fact that they are in custody remove their
custody and consent, huh? Well, the short answer is yes, they can, but we got to be careful, right? We got to be careful because you're asking, right? It's boiling down to consent. Now, is being in custody and handcuffed or in the backseat of a patrol car, is that a pretty coercive environment? Yeah, I'd say so. But we can overcome that, and there's a bunch of ways we can do that. But really, it's like you gotta convince the course that is voluntary. We've got to stay away from the coercive environment. You don't want to have 10 cops standing around there, their hands on their guns, saying, "Hey, can I search your car? Can I search your house?" In a real dominating environment. Do you want to yell at them? The way we speak with people, conversational tone goes a long way, and that's something that's important too in our documentation of our paperwork. When the subject was in handcuffs and in the backseat of the car, and I spoke with them in a conversational tone, explain that when you are trying to paint this picture that it was voluntary for them to still say yes in doing so. And I think was part of the question too, talking about can we do so? And bottom line is, yeah, we can, for sure.
Yep.
One of the big things that's not always a must, and I don't teach it as a must, but it's an option in a scenario like this where somebody is in that that dominated environment in handcuffs, where you're really trying to show this voluntary aspect. And again, it's not something that you should do every time, but give them that option to refuse you. Say, you don't have to give me consent. You have the right to refuse, but I'm asking you if I could search your car. So when you throw that out there in this circumstance, I think that goes a long way in overcoming that coercive environment, showing the voluntary component to that.
Yep, right. Telling them you can say no. It's hard for them to make the argument that I was coerced when the officer actually told me you can say no. United States versus Watson is the Supreme Court case. Guys in handcuffs in the backseat of a car. Still, he was able to give consent to search his vehicle because the officer, largely in part because the officer told him, you don't have to say yes. You can tell me no. Now, the question is, can somebody who's under arrest give you consent to search their house? Remember, consent can be denied, it can be revoked at any time, right? And so if you are going to, somebody who's handcuffed in the backseat of a car, arrested, rely on their consent to search their house, you need to establish some kind of line of communication if you're going to be going that far, so that if they decide that they no longer want you to let them search or no longer want to let you search, then they can tell you no, and they're not just screaming in the backseat of a police car outside while you're to your heart's content.
Absolutely. Yeah. Establish that line of communication. Something I think the courts even spoke about too is, if safe to do so, if you can put them in a position where they can oversee the search taking place. Car is easier than a house, then that plays into that voluntary, that consent as well. They saw the search taking place. They didn't make any verbal statements to stop what we were doing. So all those things, if it's safe to do so and applicable, articulated.